The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the winding road. Inside the car, Tom Wilson gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white.
Are we lost, Dad?
Jake, their 15-year-old son, peered out the window, his face illuminated by his phone. Tom, consulting the GPS, muttered about being almost there. As the last rays of sunlight slipped below the horizon, they rounded a bend and Blackwater Lodge came into view. The car crunched to a halt on the gravel driveway. Blackwater Lodge loomed large, its shadow stretching towards them.
Well, this is it. Blackwater Lodge.
He stepped out, stretching his arms with a groan. The others followed, their movements slow and hesitant. Tom, ever the optimist, hefted a suitcase and strode towards the front door.
Let's get inside, it's getting dark.
The house, shrouded in darkness, seemed to withdraw further into itself. The heavy oak door creaked open, revealing a cavernous foyer shrouded in shadows.
Anyone home?
Tom called out, his voice echoing in the silence. The only response was the rustle of unseen creatures. The foyer was a testament to a bygone era, with high ceilings and a grand staircase.
It's something else.
Jake wandered off down a hallway, his footsteps muffled by thick carpets. The musty scent of old paper filled Sarah's nostrils as she unpacked boxes in the library. Her fingers brushed against an old handwritten note, the paper brittle with age.
Do not stay beyond the 13th hour of the night. The spirits will awaken.
A chill ran down her spine. She tried to shake off the feeling of unease.
Just a bit of Halloween fun.
Upstairs, Jake explored the cavernous rooms, his footsteps echoing.
In the living room, he discovered an ornate music box.
A haunting melody filled the room, its notes echoing through the silence. Jake quickly shut the lid, silencing the music. The house now felt charged with an energy that sent a shiver down his spine. Lily wandered the house like a ghost, her footsteps silent.
In the grand dining room, she imagined ghostly figures seated in the high-backed chairs.
The air felt heavy, thick with unspoken words. She found herself drawn to the windows, her gaze on the darkening woods. The house felt like a living thing watching her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the temperature inside Blackwater Lodge plummeted. The shadows lengthened, crawling across the walls. The grandfather clock chimed 8 times, its sound heavy and resonant.
Getting late. Time for bed soon, kids.
Sarah, her gaze fixed on the flames, couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The old note's warning echoed in her mind, fueling her anxiety.
Lily lay in bed, her body rigid with fear.
The heavy velvet curtains did little to block out the oppressive darkness.
She imagined shadowy figures lurking in the corners of her room.
She pulled the covers up to her chin, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps.
She longed for the familiar comfort of her own bed.
But here she felt utterly alone, a prisoner in a nightmare. Down the hallway, Jake sat on the edge of his bed, his gaze fixed on the music box.
The ballerina figurine seemed to mock him with its painted smile.
Suddenly, the haunting melody filled the room again. Jake cautiously approached the music box, his hand outstretched. The air crackled with a strange energy, and the hair on the back of his neck stood on end. Downstairs, Sarah stirred from a restless sleep, her heart pounding. The fire had died down to glowing embers, casting flickering shadows. The grandfather clock chimed 12 times, its sound echoing ominously. A sudden wave of cold air washed over her. The shadows seemed to deepen, to writhe and twist. The only sound was the relentless ticking of the grandfather clock, counting down the seconds until the witching hour. The following morning, the unsettling events of the night hung over the family like a shroud. The sun, a pale disk behind a veil of clouds, did little to penetrate the oppressive atmosphere that had settled over Blackwater Lodge. Seeking solace in the fresh air and the vastness of nature, they decided to explore the nearby Blackwater Lake, hoping to escape, at least temporarily, the confines of the haunted house. The air was heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth as they followed a winding path through the woods, their footsteps muffled by a carpet of fallen leaves. The trees, their branches heavy with moisture, seemed to press in on them, their silence broken only by the cawing of crows and the distant drumming of a woodpecker. They emerged from the trees into a clearing, and the lake stretched before them, its surface as smooth and black as polished obsidian. A thick mist clung to the water, obscuring the far shore and giving the lake an eerie, otherworldly quality. The air was noticeably colder here, and a light drizzle began to fall, dotting the surface of the lake with tiny rings. At the water's edge they encountered a lone fisherman, his weathered face etched with years spent battling the elements and the secrets of the lake. He sat hunched over his fishing rod, a solitary figure against the backdrop of the mist-shrouded lake. The fisherman's words, like a chilling premonition, echoed in their minds as they made their way back to Blackwater Lodge. The forest, once a source of solace, now seemed oppressive, its silence filled with unseen eyes and rustling footsteps that followed but never quite caught up. As they approached the house, a sense of foreboding washed over them. The windows, dark and empty, seemed to watch their approach with malevolent intent. The front door, which Tom had left ajar that morning, now stood slightly open, as if inviting them back into its clutches. The air inside was thick with a palpable tension, a sense of anticipation that sent shivers down their spines. The shadows seemed to have deepened, and the silence was broken only by the creaking of the house as it settled around them like a coffin lid.
I want to go home.
Lily, her eyes wide with fear, clung to her mother's hand.
It's going to be all right, honey.
Sarah, her own fear masked by a veneer of forced calm, squeezed her daughter's hand reassuringly, though the words rang hollow even to her own ears. Driven by a growing sense of unease, they decided to leave, to pack their bags and flee the oppressive confines of Blackwater Lodge. But as Tom reached for the front door handle, it turned heavy and cold in his grasp, refusing to budge. The door was locked, bolted from the inside, though none of them recalled locking it. Panic, sharp and cold, shot through the room like a shockwave. Tom rattled the doorknob, his frustration
Jammed.
he muttered, his voice tight with a fear he couldn't disguise. Sarah, her intuition screaming a warning, raced to the phone on the wall, her fingers trembling as she dialed for help. But the line was dead, a hollow buzzing, the only response to her desperate plea for rescue.
There's no signal out here, remember? We're stranded.
Jake, his usual skepticism momentarily forgotten, slammed his fist against the wall, his frustration echoing through the silent house. As darkness descended, casting long, menacing shadows across the room, they huddled together in the living room, the flickering flames of the fireplace casting an eerie glow on their faces. The weight of their isolation, of their powerlessness against the unseen forces at play, pressed down on them, suffocating them with a sense of impending doom. The storm raged outside, mimicking the terror that had seized the hearts of the Wilson family. Rain lashed against the windows of Blackwater Lodge, the wind howling like a banshee. Huddled around a flickering oil lamp, their faces pale and drawn. Every gust of wind seemed to whisper their doom. Tom, his usual composure shattered, ran a hand through his hair. The weight of responsibility for his family pressed down on him. He felt utterly helpless, trapped in a nightmare. "Tom, there has to be a way out of here," he muttered, his voice strained. Driven by a desperate hope, they decided to search the attic, hoping to find something, anything that could shed light on the mysteries of Blackwater Lodge and perhaps reveal a way to escape its clutches. As they climbed the creaking stairs, each step echoing ominously in the silence, the air grew heavy with the weight of forgotten memories and unspoken secrets. The attic, shrouded in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs, was a graveyard of discarded dreams and forgotten lives. The musty air hung heavy with the scent of decay and the faintest hint of something sweeter, like funeral lilies left to wilt. Broken furniture, shrouded in white sheets, loomed like ghostly apparitions in the dim light filtering through a single grimy window. A sudden gust of wind rattled the window pane, sending a cascade of dust raining down from the rafters. Lily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. The storm outside seemed to mirror the turmoil within the house, as if the very walls themselves were reacting to their presence. Pushing past their fear, they began their search, their fingers tracing the spines of dusty books, their hearts pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Each creak of the floorboards beneath their feet, every rustle of fabric disturbed by their passing, sent shivers down their spines. The attic, long untouched, seemed to watch their every move, its silence broken only by the frantic beating of their own hearts. Tom, his hands trembling, gently lifted a leather-bound photo album from a dusty trunk, its clasp brittle with age. As he opened it, a musty odor, redolent of time and decay, wafted up, carrying with it the whispers of long-forgotten memories. The photographs inside were faded and yellowed, capturing glimpses of a bygone era. They saw faces frozen in time, their smiles stiff and formal, their eyes staring blankly from a distant past. There were images of children playing in the garden, a young couple on their wedding day, a family gathered around a piano, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of candlelight. As they turned the pages, a sense of unease washed over them. The people in the photographs, their features blurred by time, seemed strangely familiar. Their clothing, their hairstyles, even their expressions, held an unsettling resemblance to their own. Then their blood ran cold. There, on the last page, was a photograph that made their hearts stop. It was a portrait of their family, the Wilsons, dressed in the fashion of a bygone era. Tom, his hair slicked back, wore a high-collared suit. Sarah, her hair piled in an elaborate updo, was adorned in a lace gown. Jake and Lily, their faces solemn, were dressed in their Sunday best. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 12 times, each resonant clang a hammer blow to their already frayed nerves. Midnight had arrived, the witching hour. Terror gripped their hearts. The air in the attic grew thick with an unnatural chill. The temperature plummeted, and a palpable sense of malice descended upon them. They were no longer alone in the house. The spirits of Blackwater Lodge had awakened. A low moan echoed through the attic, followed by footsteps. Lily whimpered, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. Jake felt a surge of protectiveness. Suddenly, ghostly figures began to materialize around them. They were the people from the photographs. The family from the past had come to claim what was rightfully theirs. The Wilsons could only watch in horror as the ghostly figures closed in. The air grew thick with the stench of decay and funeral lilies. Their fate awaited them. The ghostly figures, their faces contorted in silent screams, pressed in on the Wilsons, their icy fingers reaching out like grasping claws. The air crackled with an unseen energy, and the scent of decay intensified, choking the air from their lungs. Lily screamed, a high-pitched wail that echoed through the attic, a desperate plea for mercy that went unanswered. Tom, his face pale with terror, shielded his family with his own body, a futile attempt to protect them from the inevitable. He knew with a sinking certainty that they were no match for the supernatural forces that had them in their grip. The spirits of Blackwater Lodge, their rage fueled by decades of suffering, had come to claim their due. Sarah, her eyes wide with a primal fear that transcended rational thought, pulled her children close, her embrace their only solace in the face of unimaginable horror. She could feel the icy touch of the spectral figures on her skin, their cold seeping into her bones, stealing her warmth, her life force. Jake, his young face hardened with a determination born of desperation, lashed out at their attackers, his fists connecting with nothing but cold air. He refused to give up, refused to believe that this was the end. But deep down, a chilling certainty settled over him, the realization that they were trapped, pawns in a game played by forces beyond their comprehension. Silence descended upon Blackwater Lodge, heavy and absolute. The storm outside had abated, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. The only sound was the creaking of the old house as it settled back into its centuries-old slumber, its secrets once again hidden behind a veil of normalcy. The Wilsons were gone, vanished without a trace, their fate a chilling echo of the families that had come before them. The cycle was complete, the curse of Blackwater Lodge perpetuated. The spirits, their hunger momentarily satiated, retreated to the shadows, their presence lingering in the cold spots and the whispers that danced on the edge of perception. Blackwater Lodge stood as it always had, a silent sentinel against the passage of time, its secrets buried deep within its walls. The rooms, once filled with the laughter and warmth of a family, now stood empty, their silence a testament to the horrors they had witnessed. But the curse remained, a malevolent entity lying dormant, waiting for its next victims. The Blackwater Lodge, its facade deceptively serene, awaited its next unsuspecting guest, its doors open, an invitation to a vacation that would never end. Some vacations never end.
Booyah! Ready for a Halloween getaway that'll make your spine tingle? Picture this: crystal clear waters, pristine beaches, and ghostly good deals. Breathtaking Lagoon is serving up spooktacular savings. Dice counts so scary, they'll make your wallet scream. Imagine sipping a witch's brew while lounging on haunted shores, or diving where even the fish wear costumes. Don't let these offers vanish like a phantom. Grab your broomstick and fly to our website now. At Breathtaking Lagoon, even the spirits come to unwind. Are you brave enough to take the plunge into these terrifyingly terrific Halloween deals? Book now, before these ghostly getaways disappear.